a little messed up,
Mm-hmm.
but it's pretty cool because they put 3 competitors in here as well.
Oh, nice.
So we'll talk about that one.
All right. Should be a fun show.
Yeah.
Got a lot of flights. A lot of flights. All right, here we go. 3. Let's go 3, 2, and 1. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with, I forgot that. It's an important part of the show.
I know. I don't know what to do. It's like, yeah, so along with Sean McCool.
It's a little
well, you are getting
pattern interruption there, right?
Yeah, we're both getting older. So this week.
That's right. Birthday, Mr. Sean McCool was like
as we're recording this. Yeah. So as we're recording this, yes, yesterday I turned 51.
Oh man!
And Jonathan, you got a birthday tomorrow, right?
Yeah, okay. That's crazy that our birthdays are like right there.
I know.
Together. But yeah, we're getting older, wiser. That's the good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but today, no guests. We are going to do a very fun random flight where we go through everything from creating personality and copy in your sales copy, some tips on how to do that. We're going to share some examples, and obviously we're going to give credit where credit's due, because a lot of this comes from Mr. Dan Kennedy himself, the master, the grandfather.
We just steal stuff and notice stuff. We don't actually create anything. Although you did create a little text that we'll be talking about this week.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Worth a little something to you. So that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll be talking about some scarcity, using some scarcity approaches in your marketing and how that works. Also, as you'll notice, I got a little Marvel encyclopedia that kind of plays into our personality and copy, creating origin stories, because this is really fascinating. If you're a Marvel fan, if you're not, you might not geek out on this like Sean and I, but this is actually a pretty cool book that I would recommend anybody that writes copy pick up. So
yeah, I think doesn't Ben Settle have a book on superheroes? And
I think so.
Yeah,
he's big on writing about.
Oh yeah, he loves the comics.
Yeah, he loves them.
So, and by the way, speaking of movies, not for our diehards, not that comics and movies are the same thing. I don't want to trigger anybody,
right?
But for the Marvel movies and just movies in general, I saw a stat today that box office movies are still down this year.
Yes,
by a considerable amount. So people still aren't going back to the movies. So that's interesting. Little side note. But the bigger thing is it's not that the sales are down or demand is down. They said there's usually by March, there's 250 movies released by the end of March. Yeah. And this year it's 120.
Not a lot.
So there's just not the movies to go see.
No.
So
no,
we're out there. So we're ready to go see the movies if you just give us a decent one to go see.
Right. So, yeah. So far there's been, I don't think Spider-Man was last year. That was late last year, right? That was December. So I don't consider that this year. So far the only movie that we've gone to see is The Batman. The Batman.
Yeah. So which is something right there, because we hadn't even talked about movies or anything, because there's nothing exciting coming out right now.
No.
So well, hopefully that'll change. Maybe they'll listen to us and realize they got to get going. So but then there's gonna be a flood of releases at some point, now that
absolutely
mandates are gone and all that kind
of stuff. I think I've been waiting. This is the 3rd year I've been waiting for them to release the Top Gun sequel.
Yeah, like when's that coming out?
It's like I don't know. I'm like, this thing's been made for like 3 years now. And
yeah, I mean they'll just roll the sequel. Just do a double feature. They'll have the sequel out.
No doubt, man.
All right. Well, let's talk about some beverages.
Yes.
And then we'll roll into the episode. Let me share.
We are having the same one today.
We are. So this is from Twin Oast Brewing.
Yep.
I don't know what an oast is exactly.
Twin Oast.
It's like, is that Twin Oaks, Twin Oast? Twin Oats. I like,
Twin
is that,
Oats.
yeah. So Twin Oats Brewing this is one of our Ohio beers.
Mhm.
We'll be wrapping these up in the next probably week or two,
Yeah.
2 or 3 episodes. I think I'm just about out of those.
Are
But
you going to order some more?
I might go look at some of their lagers, see if they got any dark lagers and
Mhm.
pilsners and things like that, springtime type stuff. That's
Yeah.
not an IPA. But here's the one we're having. It's called Ship Burner. It's a brown porter. ABV is 5.1%. Here's the copy. Burning the ships is a way of life. It favors the bold, those with guts and gumption. Ship Burner is a brown porter with audacity, displaying flavors of dark chocolate and coffee, daring you to face your next adventure with no plan for escape.
I like that theme.
Yeah,
You know,
I
that
mean,
reminds me.
that's putting a lot on a beer. I mean, I guess
Burn the ships, baby. Burn the ships.
All right.
Although, I don't know, that ABV looks a little different than.
Looks a little light, doesn't it?
Yeah, I thought the can was a little different than that, but maybe not. Okay,
That's
I
what
thought
the
it was
can
more,
says.
but
The can looks like the design of the can. Period actually looks like it should be heavier, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Like
it should be.
let me get
Yeah,
rid of the screen.
that's a bold image.
But this can is like dark black, brooding. It's got a clipper ship on the cover.
Yep.
Or on the label. Like that looks like a beer that should be 8 or 9%. But it's not.
No,
it's basically a lager.
It's pretty sad, but
just have to have
I do
two.
like the theme. I love burning the ships. I think that reminds me of the speech old Kirby Smart made to those boys down in Georgia right before that national championship game. He said, "Boys, tonight we're gonna burn the ships."
There you go.
And they did.
I don't know if it's true. I've heard that I heard a speaker say one time that story is actually not true.
I wouldn't doubt it.
But it won't die.
Of course.
Because it's a great story.
It's a great story, which I mean that's a good segue into our podcast today.
Yeah, I probably should have done some research to find out. So now you just have to Google it yourself instead of me Googling it for you.
That's right.
You'll have to
do that.
You'll have to just go find out, is burning the ships true story or not? Be a good thing for Mythbusters or something.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Are they still around?
No, unfortunately not. They had a huge falling out, apparently.
Those two guys. Or is that a myth?
No,
Is it all part of an elaborate scheme to come back later?
It could be. Those guys didn't like each other. They liked each other on screen, but not apparently not behind closed doors or behind the screen.
All right. Well, I've got mine poured, so I guess we'll do.
I've got mine too. Look at this
toast, and then we'll rate.
Super dark.
Yeah.
Super dark. All right. Cheers. That's good. It's really good.
I like it.
Dang. All right. So are we writing these down again?
Yeah.
All right.
You already primed me though with your good.
Man, that was bad. That's like bad salesmanship. Like just throwing your.
Yeah. You just like, charging him more.
It can work both ways, you know.
Yeah.
This is such a great product. I love this, man.
The problem with that is a salesperson, if you hear somebody say that, that's where a rookie salesperson messes up, right? They're like, this guy definitely wants it.
Yep.
So you skip your presentation, and you miss all the key points, and they're like, yeah, it's good, but I want to think about it. Do you have more samples? Because awesome.
More samples. That's it. All right.
Just leave me a brochure. I want to learn all about this.
Let me try it again. Okay. Because I could have been fooled on that first sip.
No, I think you're probably right.
No, it's pretty. All right.
All right. I got my number.
Ready?
On 3. Yep. 3. I got a 4.7. You got a 4.4.
Yep.
All right, 4744, pretty high, pretty strong.
Mhm.
I think it's got a nice. It reminds me of a Japanese beer because it's got a nice dry finish. I think
Yeah, it
there's not
does.
a lot of
Very dry.
aftertaste.
Yep.
Yeah, so is that the IBUs or what's going on with that? I don't know. I
Mm.
have no idea. Not
No.
sure what that is. You know how like the Japanese beers, like Asahi, like just
Mhm.
crisp, clean finish.
It's very,
That's
very clean, very
yeah,
clean, very crisp. Um,
could be the
yeah,
low
I mean, there's
alcohol.
not a lot of. It's got a smooth finish.
Yeah,
I didn't really capture the.
get a little
It's-
coffee, but not a lot of
yeah,
chocolate.
yeah.
So
No, it's good.
yeah, I'm impressed with
Solid.
that one. That's one I could drink, a couple of, especially at
Oh, absolutely.
5.1%. So,
Yep. Yep.
so that's a good one. I just want to give a quick shout out, real quick, to my wife. This is kind of in theme with the show.
Oh, those are beautiful.
So she made me
I
a
saw it. Mm,
imperial stout
you
chocolate
lucky bastard.
espresso cupcake. Imperial stout chocolate espresso cupcake. So it's
That's
interesting. The cupcake itself is not super sweet,
mhm,
and then the icing is like a buttercream icing, so it's pretty sweet.
mhm.
And together, I mean,
It's amazing. I'm
it's
sure
nice. Oh,
together it's a
just
nice balance.
yeah, very well done. So, but she was cussing me yesterday because I'm the one that found the recipe, and I was like, "Ooh, I'd like this for my birthday."
Mhm.
'Cause, when you've been married almost 30 years, you just lay it out there like, "That's what I want."
Man,
Um, so, um, yeah, apparently
they look beautiful. I mean, I saw your pictures, man. Those
yeah,
things look
but
amazing.
apparently the recipe was horrible that I found online. So like,
Oh, really?
some recipes they just don't, they kind of skip around and they don't exactly, they leave out a
Mhm,
little bit of information.
mhm.
But the person writing the recipe is like, oh yeah, that's enough, because they know how to do it.
Yeah.
But they skip a few important details here and there. So she was just cussing me out yesterday. Took her forever to make them. So shout out.
It is your birthday, so.
All
Well,
right.
they look nice. I mean, you can't ask for a better. So, what kind of? So there's a stout in that mixed in
Imperial stout.
imperial
So
stout. Which
I used Commitment Imperial Stout.
okay.
I think I actually used. We thought it was one can, but it was actually you had to have two, like one and a
Mhm,
half cans. Actually, that was part of the instructions
mhm.
that weren't clear. So it's actually two different Imperial Stouts. One was one we had earlier, and then I had one a Commitment Imperial Stout that I don't think I've had on here before. I'd gotten it for an upcoming show,
Right.
but I'm gonna have to go get another one. So yeah, Imperial Stout. You boil it down and then add it to
Mm.
basically the cupcake mix and the frosting. So good stuff. All right, I'm sure our listeners are tired of hearing about food and beer. If they
Got me
are, they're on the
salivating.
wrong show. But anyway, we'll talk some marketing here. Where do you want to start? I've got this postcard campaign that I got
Mhm.
from a company that I've done business with that I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. Why don't we start
Um,
there? I like
all
it.
right, because this is a pretty quick one.
Yep.
So we used HelloFresh a couple of years ago. It's
Mhm.
one of the meal kit delivery services. Loved it back then, and then we kind of moved and didn't pick it back up. But we started recently using it again.
Yeah.
Really like it, which is kind of odd because now all of a sudden we've moved over to one part of their. This is a lesson on list segmentation for all of you out there.
Mhm.
So we're buyers now again. We're getting active deliveries, but we're also on their comeback program or mailing
Mm.
list. So somewhere the two parts of the company are not talking to each other. So they're wasting money for one
Mhm.
thing. But nonetheless, so I'm on their, they're trying to win me back. And they sent this postcard in the mail, and it's a fourfold, so it folds out
Right.
pretty big.
Yep.
But what was interesting about it, it says on the cover, it says taste test your perfect meal for less. And
Mhm.
then it's got HelloFresh and three of their competitors on it.
Mm.
So it's got Factor 75, Every Plate, and then Green Chef. And then
Right.
inside, when you open it up, there's coupons for all four companies. different types of offers, 16 free meals, 135 off, 125 off, depending on the company. And then it tells you each company has its own page that kind of says what they're about and what makes them the meal delivery service for you.
Wow.
And I'm like,
That's
is this
pretty.
is this an affiliate thing? Like,
Yeah.
but then I got to think about it. I didn't look it up, so I mean, there was no way for me to really figure out exactly how they were doing it. But it reminded me of when Progressive for a while, and maybe they still do, they started they said if we don't have the best rate, we'll send you to who does.
Yeah.
And I think so. This company's probably got this list of people who left, and they're like, well, let's see if we can make some money off of them. Well, because I'm sure these got to be affiliate deals, joint venture
Gotta
deals
be.
of some
There's
kind.
no way they would put that on there if they
Yeah.
weren't getting something.
Right. So I just thought that was really interesting. Very Jay Abraham like, to be willing to go and put your competitors on a mailer. And the only way I knew it was from HelloFresh, because there is, other than the mailing side label,
Yeah.
there's no way to even know like which company this came from. Like it's not biased towards one or the other. It's really not. So yeah. I mean, it says,
are you sure that there's some company doesn't own all of these guys?
That's what I started wondering the same thing. I was like, is this all the same company? Like, I don't know.
They're
So
under one huge conglomerate, just
could
like,
be probably all working out of the same kitchen too. Who
Yeah.
knows? But they're very different style meals for sure. Because we've done Factor and we've done HelloFresh.
right.
And those are very, very different. HelloFresh tastes better. Factor is easier because it's already pre-mixed and pre-prepared.
Sure.
HelloFresh meals are really, really good. So anyway, I thought that was a cool way to go. First of all, they're doing two things really well. One, they're talking to their customers who've left them, trying to get them to come back. Most companies don't even bother. And then two, they're actually, trying to monetize that by doing a joint venture with other companies that are their direct competitors.
Right.
Because you figure, well, if we've already lost them, we'll give it one more shot. But if they don't want us, then at least let's make $50, make our mailing costs back or something plus some. So
yeah, I mean that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
You're getting something out of it, right?
Yeah.
And then you're kind of realize, I mean, that's kind of a way to clean your list too, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
it's like,
yeah. It's like
if you don't hear back from that, then
you can just kind of send them on, right? Move them on.
Of course, there are codes on the coupons, like very specific codes. So they'll know if you bought something else because it looks like there's personalized codes. So they can probably track that back to the name and see if I took the coupon for a different company.
Right.
So either way, really cool way to try to reactivate, re-engage, resell your list. And if you can't get them to buy your stuff, at least make some money
elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Make some money and send them elsewhere.
Yeah.
Clean your list, get your loyal people. I guess that's a way to kind of find out who your loyal people are.
Yeah. And it's a way to have the mailing pay for itself.
Yeah. Exactly.
Which now that I think about it, I used to do that in my handyman business way back. I would have a flyer that I would print on my side and I would sell the back of my flyer. And this was pre-apps. So I was like literally stuffing mailboxes, in neighborhoods in the newspaper box. So I was like, well, if I'm going to be driving around, spinning gas, getting the flyers printed. So I found a guy who had water treatment, whole house water treatments, and then like an electrician or something like that, stuff I couldn't do. I sold them the backside, which basically covered my cost to deliver the flyers. Then I get business and then they get some business. Win, win, win for everybody.
Absolutely.
So,
no, that's interesting. It reminds me, I heard Dan Kennedy the other day talking about like giving back in the day, when you got a huge mailing list, is like getting people, and this sounds crazy. It sounds almost counterintuitive, but giving out like gift cards, certificates for like, $20 for people who really, aren't satisfied and want to go
Yeah.
elsewhere,
Yeah.
And so he goes, listen, it's an easy way to basically clean your list.
Yeah.
It's like, get the people that are just in it for every, they're going to be, the people that want the $20 gift card or whatever, small amount it is to get off your list,
Yeah.
to clean those people off. He said that's a small price to pay to get rid of those people. So you give them an incentive to literally get off your list. So what does that leave? That leaves the people who literally turn down, this value that
Yeah.
you've given them. And they're saying, no, I want to stay on. So those are your basically, what are you left with? You're left with your loyal, your loyal subscribers, the people that really are like, no, $20. I want to stay on,
Yeah. And I can definitely see when you had a physical mailing list why that would be important because,
Right.
if you're sending out packages that cost, and when I mean a mailing package, so it could be an envelope, letter, stamps, printing, list rental, or whatever. You can spend $1 to $3 pretty easily.
Yeah.
So if you do that over and over, especially for aggressive mailers, which back in the day people mailed a lot more.
Right.
Yeah, you could eat up that $20 in 6 months. So that
Sure.
it does make sense when you look at it that way. I don't know that it makes the same sense with an email list.
No, not I could see that. Yeah, it's
I think you could just
a little bit
segment.
different with digital. Yep.
Yeah, I think with digital you could probably just segment harder.
Mm-hmm.
You could do some type of offer, but I don't know what it would be. Have to
Right.
think on that one. So speaking of Dan Kennedy, you got some Dan Kennedy stuff to share.
Yeah. So before we get into personality, we're going to talk about personality and copy, some things that I've come across, and some great tips for people that are creating origin stories or personality in their sales copy. I want to, there's a couple of things I want to talk about real quick. And one of them is a piece of equipment that I ordered this week. And this is for anybody that is thinking about podcasting. I realize that everybody's got a podcast nowadays, but there are still some people out there.
You've got like 6. So
yeah, right. I mean, 6 of them. So I've got the equipment to support 6 podcasts. But anybody that's interested in getting started in podcasting. So I tried this. I ordered this new piece of equipment. It's out. I think it just came out a couple of months ago from Zoom. I'm a big fan of a lot of their stuff, but I've got their I think it's their H6 recorder. But this is their new PodTrack recorder right here. It's called the PodTrack P4 recorder. Basically, I mean, this thing does everything that the mixer in front of me does, which is about a $700 mixer. This Rode, pod mixer that I've got in front of me. This little thing, which is about 200, I think it's about $230, does everything that this thing does. Plus, it's really portable and it's mobile. It's got 4 tracks, 1, 2, 3, 4 for your XL microphone that you speak into. In addition, here's what's the cool thing. Here's the thing that sold me is that you get this, it comes with this little Bluetooth thing that you hook in to the side, and you can literally Bluetooth your phone into it and do calls from this little thing.
Nice.
So you don't even need you don't need an internet connection to do like podcast interviews.
Yeah.
You don't need any of that stuff. You can Bluetooth to your smartphone, make a phone call, do interviews, whether it's podcast interviews or just pre-recorded interviews that you want to do with someone. This thing is awesome. So I've used it a couple of times this week. Amazing sound quality. And it even has these little tracks right here. These are your mic tracks up here with the volume.
Yep.
And for people that are listening, you can see this on the video over at YouTube. These are actually little voiceover tracks or soundtracks that you can add too. So you push any one of these buttons while you're recording, and it creates that, the applause effect or the drum effect. But you can do that on a small level with one of these.
So you could use that with like your bumper intro music or
Yep,
something. You can put that
exactly.
on
Create your
one of those
bumper,
buttons.
and you can create your own. It's got some that are already recorded onto these that you
Mhm.
can use. I think it's got an applause, it's got a laugh track, and a couple of it's got a music that's kind of a music intro, but it may not be the one that you want to use. So you can
Yeah.
create your own, put on here, and use this, and just hold these buttons down when you're recording.
Yeah.
And it creates that sound effect. So I'm super impressed. I mean, technology is amazing from what since I've been podcasting, but the fact that you've got one of these little, something this size with the little Bluetooth adapter that you can hook into your phone, throw it into a bag and carry with you and podcast on the go, even when you're out of town, saves me a lot of time,
Yeah. That's
a
cool.
lot of extra equipment. So
And
anyway,
it
that is the,
records to an SD card, I assume.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
little SD card, little SD card slot right there on the side.
Yeah.
You just pull your card out. What's cool is even even if you want to hook into, there's some adapters on the side for right here. If you did want to hook it in, if you're doing a Zoom call or if you're using StreamYard and you did want to hook into your computer, you've got a micro SD to
Okay.
SD. You could do that easily
Yeah.
and use this on a platform like what we're doing with StreamYard. So
Very cool.
a lot of different options. So you don't want to carry one of these huge Rode, and you can't see it, but this Rode mixer is like this big, and it's
Yeah.
cool and everything, but it's nice that you got something like this you can throw in a bag and take with you on the go. So this is perfect for me for what I do. I go to trade shows, I travel, I go to a lot of these events. So this is awesome. I can just sit here, throw this in a bag, weighs nothing, doesn't take up a lot of space, take it with me with a couple of mics, boom, I am set.
Yeah.
And you
That's
can
cool.
create a really quality podcast recording on the go. And like I said, for a fraction of the cost of this big Rode thing, because I used to lug this thing to trade shows. I lug this thing to a trade show, and it takes up a lot of space, and it's kind of frustrating because sometimes you don't have a lot of room,
Yeah.
and it's kind of frustrating because this thing's like so it takes up too much space. So it's great for in my studio, but I don't like to take this thing on the road. So it's cool that I found something that you can use that's perfect for doing a lot of Skype or a lot of calls that are Zoom, and also just do with that Bluetooth feature that
Yeah.
you can take some calls on
And
the
you can get two mics like the one I'm using.
bingo.
They're
Yeah.
79 to
Mm-hmm.
99 bucks a piece.
Yep.
And they come with is that the XLR, the bigger
Mm-hmm. Yep.
type that would plug into that? And
Yep.
you could even be in a fairly loud room and get a decent recording.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Yeah, it works great for XLR mics. You can even use a dynamic mic on this thing, and it'll work well too. But yeah, it is the again the Zoom PodTrack P4, awesome little piece of equipment. So
yeah.
I know we don't do product reviews very often, but I had to mention that because that thing's
Yeah,
just
that's
crazy cool. So
Yeah,
we'll put a
throw a,
link.
throw a link in the show notes over at persuasionbythepint.com.
Absolutely.
All right. So what else you got
All right.
on your
So
flight?
I want to mention too, before we get into personality and copy, I want to talk about a little lesson on scarcity. So I
Yes.
sent you this week. So here's a little thing, like, I do the podcast. I do a lot of, I have podcast sponsorships, and what I try to do, the way I work my sponsorships on some of my industry podcast shows is I like to do it in 6 month, 6 month increments. Sometimes I'll get a 1 year sponsor, but I don't do month to month. I stopped doing that a long time ago. So it's like, somebody asked me about, podcasting, and it's like, here's the deal. You got to pay up front for 6 months, because I don't do month to month. If you're thinking about being a sponsor for 1 month, you're not the person, you don't need to be doing podcast sponsorships because this stuff takes, it takes time. Your message has to get in front of an audience. So I had an opening this week for a 6 spot, for the next 6 months of our sponsors. We're coming up on that timetable next month for our next six sponsors. I've got 5 lined up, taken care of. But I had a company that was really kind of, just kind of dragging their feet. So I sent them, and I showed you a quick email, and this goes to the power of scarcity. And so you always want to be upfront and honest with people when you're talking about scarcity, but you also want to let them know when things are coming to an end or very limited. So I sent this out. This is the exact text that I sent to a company this week because they had, I'd followed up with them a couple of times. They said, I'll get back with you. I said, hey, such and such, the guy's name, and I'm going to
It's a
edit that out.
strange name, but whatever.
I said, just FYI. And I sent this. It took me like 30 seconds to like shoot. I was like, one morning I was like getting
Yeah,
ready and I was like,
this was not a well formatted email or anything.
no,
This was
no, it
just a
wasn't.
text.
It was just it was a text that I just shot out, not well crafted. In fact, it was get ready one morning. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to shoot this guy one last email
Tired of
or
this guy dragging his feet.
one last text because they've been dragging their feet. So I said, just FYI, we have only one podcast advertising slot available, one last slot available for the next 6 months. We only take 6 exclusive, keyword exclusive, advertisers at a time during a 6-month period. It will probably be filled by the end of March, which is true because I've talked to a number of other companies, although they were kind of more interested than some of the other companies. And so I said, so if you are planning to do advertising with Composites Weekly, my podcast show, you need to let me know soon. So within about a minute, the guy texted me back. Obviously he apologized about it, said they will be jumping on board, and he will try to get me the information next week, so they can not miss out on this opportunity. So again, it's just a quick, just an easy lesson on how to kind of push people in.
Yeah, and you showed me the text, and he literally said, "Sorry." Was the first word he texted back.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. His first word is that his first sentence was, "Sorry about this." So, and obviously things happen, business, things get crazy, people get busy. And that's what he explained to me after he apologized. He said, things have been busy, but yes, we want to we want to move forward. So,
and this is why follow up is so important, because it's not personal that they just don't want to do business with you.
No,
people are literally busy,
busy,
just as busy as you are, just as forgetful as you are, and
absolutely.
if you're not the guy staying in front of them, the guy that stays in front of them is the one that gets the business. It's as simple
and the
as
only
that.
way to light a fire under them.
Yeah.
If you keep saying, hey, just following up with you, people are going to be like, yeah, we are. We just give us some time.
Yeah. At some point, you got to put some urgency in there.
Yeah. You've always got to put urgency in your, in your sales, whether it's texting or email or whatever, but create and don't lie. I mean, and I didn't lie here. I've got 3 other companies that I've been talking to, but these are guys that have kind of developed a relationship with and kind of fit the bill. They would be the perfect ones for that podcast slot. So I'd hate to say, it would be great to have them, but here's a way to say, listen, it's now or never, and so if they weren't, I was completely fine with them saying, you know what, it's just not right for us at this point. But that was just a way to kind of, like we were talking about
either
earlier,
way, you get closure. Like you either get
closure, kick them off the list, and move forward with these others.
Right, exactly.
So you've got to do that from time to time. You got to create some urgency, some scarcity in anything to get people to move forward or off the deck. You like either move in or move off. And so that's what you have to do. The last thing you want are these straddlers who are out there and like, I think I'm interested. I need a little more time. I need a little more time. Well, you've got to create, you've got to move those people forward in any of your sales and any of your marketing or sales letters. You got to say, well, just letting you know that this ain't going to be forever. Right. So
Yep.
you got to make a decision in by this point. And I told him, and so that urgency creates decision making pretty quick. And I've done that time and time again with an email, and I've talked about in times past sending out emails. Have you given up on this project? In the headline, right? And so when people see that 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 kind of, it's like a final email. Have you given up on this project? Kind of puts the onus on them to say, wait a minute, no, we're still interested. Gets
Yeah.
the conversation started. If people aren't returning your emails that you've reached out to a number of times, use that line, have you given up on this project, and say simply, hey, so and so, just reaching back out to make sure to see if you've given up. If you have, let's clear things out. I'm moving forward. I just want to make sure. But a lot of times what's going to happen is they don't want to finalize things if they're somewhat interested, and that'll re-engage them right away. So
Well, yeah, human nature is just to put stuff off. So
yep.
they'll put them off. They'll put it off as long as
Yeah,
until something
absolutely.
pushes them, whether it's
Mhm.
you or, circumstances. Like, but tendency is to just
Mhm.
status quo, put things off,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, overanalyze, all that. So
Yep.
that's good.
Yeah. I got that. By the way, I got that subject line, have you given up, we've talked about him, Chris Voss from Never Split the Difference.
Yeah.
Great book on negotiating, by the way. And
Yeah.
he talks about implementing that into your emails. If you've reached out to someone, or you followed up on a particular project or a particular quote or something like that, proposal, and you're like, nothing, 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 then all of a sudden do this. Have you given up on this project?
Yeah.
And that'll create,
It'll
you'll be
create a
amazed at the
yeah.
response.
And you'll definitely get some conversations
Absolutely.
fired back up. It's kind of like
Yep.
the 9-word email,
Mm-hmm.
are
Yep.
you still interested in?
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yep.
like this even better because have you given up on is even more jarring
Yeah.
than are you still interested in
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
So have you given up on is like, no, 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 no. It's like you're about to take their candy from them or something,
Right.
It's like,
Yep.
no, don't
Oh
do
yeah.
that.
I've used that. I've used that a number of times with people that are in buying positions that for whatever reason drag their feet, and you send that out, and almost I would say 80% of the time you'll get a response if
Yeah.
if you use that in the headline of the
Yeah.
email.
For
They
sure.
will
Those
respond.
short, quick,
Hmm.
and when you do it, for those that aren't familiar with the technique, you don't want to put anything else. Like, don't elaborate.
Right. Mm-mm.
You just got to
Nope.
do that.
Hmm.
And even if you're using a template because you have to with work,
Yep.
one little trick is to put like 50 line breaks after that sentence
Oh yeah.
to
Yes.
push your graphic footer down.
Yep.
Um, so it should be just your name, not like your name, title, everything else. Assuming you've been communicating enough that they would recognize your name.
Right.
So,
Right.
so yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, I'm curious about how you're going to tie this Marvel encyclopedia sitting on your desk to
This is
creating
good.
personality and copy.
This thing's thick, man. Look at this.
Look at that.
Look at
Now,
that,
can
man.
you explain to our younger listeners what an encyclopedia is?
What can you name even an encyclopedia? Or let's see, Britannica is one, right?
Britannica for sure. I can't name one
Um,
other than that.
I
World,
can't either.
yeah, I don't. World Britannica, the same thing. I think that's what I sold. I spent like a week, I think, when college selling
Yeah.
encyclopedias.
Hmm.
Like, this is not for me.
No,
But yeah,
I
that is
remember
cool.
I bought a set. I don't know, when I was stationed. I got suckered in
Oh yeah, they
by
love military bases.
military. Yeah, military people are like suckers because they were like, and I remember the guy was a pretty good salesperson, and I wasn't a seasoned. I was a young, kind of naive person
You
at the
weren't
time.
married yet then.
I wasn't married,
Yeah,
which is even more amazing why
yeah. It's not like you had
he was
kids.
able to sell it to a single guy.
Yeah,
But I bought like this whole set of encyclopedias and dictionaries, and like it was like, do you want to create a future? I thought I want to say that was like creating a future for your because every guy thinks, well, I'm not going to have a family now, but down the road, creating a future of education. Do you see a future of yourself outside of the military where you educate yourself beyond that and have a family that's educated and all this stuff? It's crazy how they get you. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but yeah, this is a little different encyclopedia. This is an encyclopedia you actually want to read. This is the Marvel Encyclopedia, and this has every character in the Marvel universe, everyone, and it
Yeah,
tells their origin stories.
and that's
Right?
interesting because they're rolling these things. I mean, they're now that they
Oh,
have Disney Plus, like they're just rolling all these obscure characters out now.
so you can turn and they have obscure characters, Sean, that you've never heard of, and
Yeah.
even with with all the movies they've come out with, there's still characters in here.
Oh, they just scratched
Um,
the surface. Yeah, they took the big mainstream characters for the movies.
a guy
Who's
named
this guy?
Fool Killer, Fool
Fool,
Killer.
Fool Killer. Is that Mr. T?
He kind of looks like it.
I pity the fool.
Forge. There's a guy named Forge. I mean, all of these guys. So what it does is it breaks them down on their origins. So for instance, this guy Forge, apparently he is a Native American who became known as Forge, was not only trained in mystic arts by Nays, a shaman in his Cheyenne tribe, but was also a mutant with the ability to invent highly sophisticated mechanical devices, right?
Wow.
Never heard of him.
No.
So it goes in, it tells you his origin, tells you his power, even gives you his occupation, where he lives, his height, his weight, color of his eyes, hair color, everything.
Seems like he could have been like a good, director of maintenance for the X-Men school,
Yeah.
the X school, whatever that place was called.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Professor X's.
Yeah, whatever the school name was. I can't remember the
Yeah.
name of the school, but that was the
Yep.
first big Marvel kind of
Yeah.
hits.
Yeah. It's
I guess
got every character from X-Men to the Avengers. I mean, any character that you can ever think of that is Marvel related. And it's kind of cool because it's got an introduction by Stan Lee. So if you can find this, you can find this on Amazon for like $30. But it's pretty cool. So it gives you
it's a cool coffee table book too.
It is.
Colorful.
So it kind of gives you an idea, and it's great for anybody that's in, copywriting, but because it gives you ideas on origin stories, and origin stories are awesome because I'm fascinated. I'm always drawn into how did such and such become who he is. And we talked about this. We kind of hinted on this last week when we talked about, creating your personalities in your story selling. When in face-to-face selling, we talked about face-to-face selling last week, where we talked about I'm not who you think I am. And we talked about, people like Tony Robbins, Dave Ramsey, everybody's got an origin story today. Robert Kiyosaki, all of these guys. And that is how they make their money, is all those stories. They wear those stories out big time.
On behind me on my little shelf back here, I've got the Hulk hands.
Yep.
Behind me. And I use those when I give talks on my coaching stuff, because I talk about the TV Incredible Hulk series.
Oh, yes.
And their intro was basically the origin story. Every week, they played that thing over and over.
That's great.
And that
can
is like
still
a
hear the
30
music.
Yeah. Like you get the rainstorm and the you get the whole origin story in that 30 seconds. I think that is a great study of how to tell a story in like 30 seconds that kind of sets up all kinds of nuance with his character that you instantly understand why he's doing what he's doing, why he turns green and angry. Like you get it all in that 30 seconds. It's
every
amazing.
time. Yeah, that was smart on their part because every episode started with that.
Yeah, so you don't have to spend the actual episode hinting or bringing back the backstory, because it's not a movie; it was a weekly series, so you had to keep people up to date. I think more TV shows should do that. Like if you look at wherever there's a main character, like I love I guess it's a psychology type law show, Bull.
Oh
He's
yeah,
a
yeah.
he's the character. He used to be on NCIS, but his character is he's not a lawyer, but he's a trial scientist. So he
Mm-hmm.
uses persuasion and psychology to figure
Yeah.
out the best jurors and the best angles and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting. But even that, I think, would be cool if they had a backstory, origin story that kind of rolled at the beginning. But you just don't see many shows doing that anymore.
No, not at all.
I think it's so many of the shows now are more ensembles,
Mm-hmm.
a group of people instead of one person.
Yep.
There's not many
Yeah.
one person focused shows anymore,
No.
like there was back then.
And I think the key to creating, and obviously any character, and what you want to do is create characters around, whatever you're writing copy for. Whether it's an organization, yourself, if you're promoting yourself.
Well, all these origin stories are born out of a frustration of some kind.
Bingo. Yes.
Which
Yep.
is if you're writing copy and you use the most basic formula for copy, there's the two most famous are PAS, which is problem, agitate, solve,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then AIDA, which is attention, interest, desire, action.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to get attention is frustration and pain.
Absolutely.
For the
Yeah.
most part. So if you look back through your encyclopedia there, I mean, you think about most of the characters, their origin stories come out of some type of frustration they were having, some type of problem they were trying to solve,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
some type of trauma. I'm not strong enough, so I want to get
Mm-hmm.
stronger. I'm not smart enough, so I want to get smarter. Even the villains, same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to create some invention, something goes wrong. Next thing you know, they've got, mechanical arms and legs and stuff.
Right.
So
yeah, and sometimes it's completely out of their control, right?
Right.
These, accidents or things in life, happen upon them, whether it's, an accident, we talked about last week, talking about Brendan Bouchard, he tells the
car accident story.
Yep. Which are traumatic, but they lead people into, it's gripping. And so that's one of the key takeaways is that your story has to have flaws in it. Like you have to have serious flaws, from, talking about the guy that was, whether it's Tony Robbins being overweight, being just disgusted at who he, what he looked like, or
not being able to eat and pay the rent and
right. Exactly. Brandon Bouchard, like you said last week, that one story, his having a blanket of bills, on the bed, while his wife was sleeping. I mean, what kind of picture is that? I mean, that's a huge picture right there in your mind. It never leaves. But those are flawed stories of people that are having problems. They didn't come from, no one likes, and that's one of the things that Dan writes in his in this key takeaway is in this series that he does on personality and copy. He says no one wants to read about a perfect character. So a character possessing perfection in one area should possess imperfection in another area. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle understood this, which is one of the reasons Sherlock Holmes has stood the test of time for more than 100 years. I don't know if any of our listeners have read Sherlock Holmes, but Holmes has the perfect intellect, but he's an emotional black hole, so he's deficient in one area. He's really smart guy, but he's completely deficient when it comes to that relatability. When it comes to personal relationships, he kind of fails in that area.
Yes. And in that same vein, you've got spinoffs of that. So you've got Columbo from back in our day.
Oh, love it.
Right.
One of the all-time best.
So Columbo is this brilliant detective, but he's sloppy, just kind of gross.
His hair's just all disheveled. His pants, his clothes are not ironed. They're just look wrinkled. He's got the old trench coat.
And then on the opposite side of that, somebody took that idea, spun it, and they came up with Monk.
Yep.
Do you remember that
exactly?
One? Super OCD.
Completely.
Super clean, polished. Everything has to stay in place.
That's right.
Just literally neurotic.
Yep.
But brilliant at solving crimes for the same reason.
Yep.
So, I think Gary Halbert, as a copywriter, kind of did this for himself, right?
Hmm.
He's a brilliant copywriter, but there was this thread throughout his life of that he really couldn't get his life together. You know,
Yep.
there's times where he was living in somebody else's place and
Hmm.
working with because he couldn't afford his own place, and then
Right.
you know his back was against the wall, so he wrote this incredible sales letter. There's he couldn't find a woman, so he put an ad out for
Mhm.
a date. Like he had these pictures of like that. Here's this guy who can sell anything for you for your company,
Sure. Yeah.
but his life's kind of falling apart over here on the at
Yep.
the same time.
Yep.
So yeah, you see it all throughout stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. And
And
I think people are, it's again, no one wants to read about that guy Superman was my least favorite character because he was what I mean, the reason why, because he was always like the perfect guy, right?
well,
I mean, he was
that was the problem with Captain America, right?
yeah, right.
He was kind of born out of the same time period, and they used that in the Avengers against
Hmm.
him because they always picked on him about that, and
Absolutely.
they made his perfection a flaw,
Yep.
even though but his origin story is still the same. I was a scrawny kid,
Sure.
like all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, to keep that like too good, goody two shoes. I mean, I think that's what Iron Man called him all the time. He's like goody two shoes, Captain Goody Two Shoes, or whatever. He was always picking on him.
That's right.
Because they
Absolutely. Yeah.
had to bring out
Uh-huh.
that not perfect side of the character.
Right.
It's like, oh, your perfection is your imperfection.
Hmm. Yep.
It's like a job. Sounds like a job interview. What's your weaknesses? My greatest weakness is my humility.
Exactly. Right. Which is okay. Nice try.
My greatest weakness is I'm usually only 5 minutes early to meetings. I'd like to
Yeah.
be 10 to 15 minutes early, but for whatever reason, I can't get out the door. And yeah, so
um,
um, what's your favorite origin story?
um, I really, from a superhero standpoint.
Yeah, we'll do one from superheroes and we'll do one from like, is there a business or
Okay.
any character? It doesn't have to be superhero. It could be any character.
Okay. I've always loved although I'm a Marvel fan, I've always loved the Batman
Yeah.
from a DC standpoint. He's probably the only character in DC that I've really ever followed
Well, he's the
as
one
a
you see,
kid,
and that's the story you see get made over and over and
over
over
and
and over.
over. Yep.
Yeah, that's
And
the part of
so,
the universe. The DC universe is huge too, but that's
mhm,
the one that keeps coming back, and all the characters from Gotham City,
yep,
because they're all kind of crafted that way. They all have
absolutely.
pretty clear origin stories.
And the best, I think the best series still to this date, and we've, my kids and I, we went to see the most recent The Batman. But still, by far, the best series is Christopher Nolan's series that he did. Christian Bale,
Yeah,
um, because it developed it really told the story.
mhm.
This one jumps right in the middle. It
Yeah,
really doesn't tell the story, which you probably at this point you've seen so many versions of Batman out there that you don't care about the story. So, um, and that's fine. But I love the fact that in Christopher Nolan, he tied in the fact that, um, why he became who he was, right?
yeah,
And a lot of it has to do with, from his standpoint, parents murdered, at an early age,
yep,
saw the decay of his city, with the crime, everything, thought he had to do something about it, went away, trained. And what I love about the Christopher Nolan series is it really goes into detail, like how does a regular guy, a rich guy,
yeah,
guy that grew up in wealth, um, just automatically become like this menace to crime. And so it shows, he went out, he went off, he trained, dedicated himself. Then he comes back home and then he's like figuring out ways to, like, I love the series that Nolan did where he's like, trying to figure out how to order stuff and like, bring stuff in where it's doesn't, arouse suspicion. He's like
yeah,
bringing in like stuff to make his suits and all this stuff and all of his gadgets. And then he's got this his military side of his company, that he's able to borrow gadgets and stuff that's never been used. It's never been used in the military. That's a great story. That's a great
Yeah.
tie-in of how he's able to do that. So,
Very Iron
um,
Man-esque too.
yeah,
I think
very,
they
very much.
developed I think they
Hmm.
probably developed some when they saw the success of Iron Man. They
Oh
probably
yeah, yeah,
borrowed some of that.
definitely, definitely. So that's probably my greatest, the coolest origin story that I've always followed of how
Mhm.
he became who he is. I think from my business standpoint, I've always really admired, and I don't hold to his financial advice as much, but I love Dave Ramsey's story.
Yeah.
A guy that
His
went totally bankrupt, lost everything. He tells, I mean, and I think it's just because I've heard it so many times of him, especially driving around an old hoopty, that's
yeah.
barely stitched together with
Well, it just resonates on so many levels, right?
yeah,
Because I think
yeah.
as people get more successful, copywriters included, you
Mhm.
begin to forget some of the hard times that you went through,
Yeah.
and you forget to write to those. Is that
Yep.
I think what happens as you get more successful, either as a company, a marketer, a salesperson, you start to think that your market is
Hmm.
is like you when it's
Right.
actually like you were 5 or 6 years or 10 or 15 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we forget that the majority of people, unless you really know your niche is,
Hmm.
Ferrari buyers or whatever, but for the most part, people are struggling.
Hmm.
They are, despite what you see on Instagram and everywhere else, like most people are driving a pretty old used car.
Yeah.
Most people are struggling. Like that's why this whole gas price meme went crazy because
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
that's real life for people.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
you forget that and you're not able to tap into that origin
Hmm.
story,
Hmm.
whether it's, financial, whether it's just confusion, depression, not being in the shape you want to be in, too
Yeah.
fat, too skinny, too
Right.
whatever, um, you know, I think we can all tend to forget those things
Yep.
as we get our own success. And
Hmm.
you really have to tap back into that. And
Absolutely.
we get tired of telling the story,
We do. Yeah.
you know? I think David Ogilvy said that you'll get tired of your story long before the
Yeah.
market does, because you'll
Yep.
see it and hear it a
Yep.
hundred times before the market hears it once.
Absolutely. And as in marketing, copywriting, and sales, we like to hear, and this, Sean, we like to we're tired of our own story. So
Yeah,
we like to hear other people's story. I'm always gravitated towards, like, when I interview, companies on my podcast, I always like, that's the thing. I like to hear their origin stories, how they, became who they are. So I'm always interested in them, and I'm
yeah,
thinking, well, I think I get tired of my own story. So I'm always interested in somebody else's story, which is cool, because we work with companies. We help to tell them their, craft their stories. We give them ideas for crafting better stories.
yep,
But sometimes we neglect our own stories. We're thinking, uh, I can't remember. It's like, I've done this forever. It's like,
yeah, yep,
but I've made that a project for myself, and doing some campaigns in my own business is tying in some of my background. And so what I did was, I've crafted some campaigns, some sales campaigns that tie into using some of my background. And one of the things is, I did a sales letter this week to a company talking about, and I'm trying to really hone in on the sales letter that hones in on peace of mind. That's my hot button for so many companies right now in today's climate, in today's environment, in my industry,
right,
is peace of mind, knowing that, raw material is going to be there, material is going to be there, because it's so fluctuating today. Everything's volatile right now with supply chain issues. So one of the things I've done some sales letters out, not like, I'm not talking like 10-page copywriting campaigns, but talking really, 1 to 2 page sales letters that go out to companies and telling them these are prospects that I'm trying to sell to, but talking about peace of mind. And like the origins of my story, my background. We both, Sean, you and I both come from a military background. Our MOSs were different. My MOS was a 19 Delta, which was reconnaissance. And so
Yeah.
what I tell the story is that, my background is in the military. People love military stories.
Yep.
And you can tell that. You can say, and so what I did was talk about, in terms of reconnaissance, what does that mean? What does a reconnaissance person do? Well, he goes out and he basically is the eyes and ears of the main body. He's basically he's scoping out any of the deadly scenarios that might take place when you send your main body out. So that's the job of a reconnaissance scout, is to go out and make sure that you have peace of mind knowing that you're not going to have any
That's a
things like
great, yeah, that's a great tie-in. That's really good.
so no landmines, no unforeseen circumstances. And
You
that
are
was always
and you are literally trained to see and notice things that others aren't.
That's right. So that, and they always called us, our title was always they called us the eyes and ears of the Army, because that's
Yeah.
what we do. We go out before the main body, scope out everything, radio back, and give what we had, our reconnaissance, give all the information we can to make sure, hey, this path is clear for the main body to come through. And so that's what I'm tying into my letters to my manufacturing prospects, is that, listen, peace of mind. This is what I do. I understand what it's like in a time of uncertainty. This is what I did. I
Yeah.
always went out in front of our main body. I would scout out those obstacles, and that's what I'm going to do for you, because here's what I currently do. I make sure that your raw material is going to be there on a timely manner, and we take care of that. We're not suffering any supply chain problems, and I can assure you, you'll have that same peace of mind as if I am your own recon scout, in from a manufacturing standpoint. So
That's good.
so I'm tying those two in, and so those are so important. So everybody's got something that they can go back and they can delve into, from their past, what they've done, and tie that into their copy. That's going to help them improve their marketing, improve their own success. So
Yeah, and if you think you don't, I promise you do. You can either sit down with a copywriter and they can kind of pull
oh
it
yeah.
out of you,
Mm-hmm.
or another good resource is something like Storyline from Donald Miller.
Yep.
There's
Oh
some
yeah.
exercises that he has in that workbook that go along
Mm-hmm.
with that have you map out your entire time, your
Absolutely. Yeah.
lifeline, and you kind of rate it was a high or low, and then you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of see this overarching theme. It's one of the exercises he does
Yep.
that I like. So yeah, there's definitely, but it doesn't have to be of. It's only got to be just there's different points that you can pull out for different
Mm-hmm.
things. We were talking last week about the 5 different types of stories.
Yep.
It's like we said before. Brendan Burchard he has his origin story, which was the crash, but then he's got kind of as he was struggling to tell his story,
Yeah.
the bills and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the endurance part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yep.
from there, those are his
Yep.
2 big stories that,
Mm-hmm.
come from literally a split second in time.
Oh yeah.
It's not like you have to tell something that happened over the course of 5 years.
Right.
It's usually a moment in time that was a turning point for you,
Mm-hmm.
or a skill you developed like you did.
Yep.
You know, for me, for a long time, when I was telling my copy story, it's like I used to be a handyman.
Sure.
Actually, I started the handyman business with like $26 in my pocket,
Oh, I
literally
love
in my
that
checking
story.
account.
Yep.
Took $10 or $16 and made flyers, got them printed at
Mhm.
Office Depot,
Mm-hmm.
and took the other $10 and put gas in the car. We were down to zero. Went out and passed out flyers.
Wow.
24 hours later, got a call, quoted it, made $1,000 that weekend,
That's awesome.
and it
Yeah. What a
turned
great
everything
story.
around. And
Yeah.
we rode that for a couple of years. Then I got into copy, and
Mm-hmm.
that's got its own story about how that happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just pull out these different times in your life, because we've all overcome stuff.
Yep.
You just got to notice it, put a little.
What you just mentioned reminds me, because I've always loved your story, because you've told it at some of our local events in the past, but it reminds me of the I was watching a Steve Harvey. I got to send this to you, but I was listening to Steve. You know, Steve Harvey is
Yeah.
just he's killed it on Family Feud and so many other things. But he talks about like the first time he was living in his car. You know, this was I actually saved this video, but it was him living in his car. He was down to like $30. Didn't have anything else, and he um, he got a call from the Apollo in New York, you know, and this was on I think this was on like a Thursday, and this was back before cell phones, so he literally went to a payphone, called into his voicemail, and was like, I don't know what to do, but he found this voicemail on the Apollo. Said, we saw your stuff. We're interested in having you. And this was on a Sunday. I think it was on like a Sunday night. They wanted him at the Apollo, and it was Thursday. He had $30. He had no way of getting to New York on $30. I mean, that wouldn't cover the gas or anything, much
Yeah.
less a flight. So he was like, oh, well. But he said he called right back. He said following that voicemail, there was another voicemail of a comedy club over in Jacksonville, Florida, where he was. I guess it was close to where he was at the time. That said, "Hey, we heard your stuff and we like what you do. Can you be here on? I think it was on a Friday. Can you be here on Friday, the next day, and do a little thing? We'll pay you like $150." It was like, boom, they hit. You know, so he drove over there. You know, got the $150, took the $150, got a ticket. At that time, I guess you could get a ticket for about $150.
Yeah.
You know, flew up to New York, stayed at the Apollo. You know, he didn't have any place to stay, so they let him stay like at the floor above the Apollo. The guy finally relented and said, "Whatever, you can stay here." He would let him live, or
Wow.
like stay overnight. And that was like it. That was his like that one thing, that being able to do the Apollo kind of launched him. And imagine had he not been able to make it to New York, who knows? I mean, who knows what would have
And the
happened?
story there is just the way you would spin that is, perseverance,
Yeah.
finding a way. There's a lot of
Yep.
stories you could pull out of that.
Yeah.
Dedication,
And you
all
can
kinds of
use
stuff.
other people's stories. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Sometimes we think we have to have the story. Sometimes you can use those stories in your copy.
Oh,
So,
for sure.
yeah.
I mean, Robert Greene's a great example of that. He's
Oh, yeah.
written some masterpiece books,
Hmm.
and he he proves his point with history.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of his own clients or his own
Yeah.
experience, he's like, here's the principle,
Yep.
here's the law of power, his
Hmm.
48 laws of power. Then he demonstrates it through historical things,
Right.
which is a really cool thing because then you don't, it's not you saying it, it's
Oh,
history
that's right.
saying it,
Yep.
which is a
Hmm.
great little technique to write a nonfiction kind of
Yeah.
self help type book. All right, man.
Absolutely.
Well, we've been going for a while. Do you have anything
Yeah.
else you wanted to cover?
No, that's it. Again, it's just taken away from a lot of Dan Kennedy stuff and personality in marketing. Really good stuff. You know, there's so much that I forget that Dan put out, and I've had a chance to go through lately, and that's just one of them. Personality and copy is amazing. He references a lot of stuff that you should be reading. You know, comics are one, but you know, origin stories, things like that. You should read on how to write stories, how to write good stories. He does recommend Stephen King's On Writing. That's one of his top recommendations, which we've talked about in the past.
Yeah, that was the
Um,
first book
mhm.
when I became a full time copywriter that my copy chief recommended.
Yeah.
Paid me to sit in the office and read it. I mean, he's like, "You're
Wow.
not writing anything until you finish reading this book."
That's great.
So that's
That's
how
a
important it
jewel.
was. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
and
That's
yeah, it's great.
start with that one for sure.
Yeah.
All
All right.
right. Good stuff, man. Good show today. Anything else? You got anything else before we wrap up?
Nope, I'm good. I'm out of beer, so I guess we're good.
Yeah, me too. Good beer. Good topic, good show. To all of our listeners, you can find us at persuasionbythepint.com. You can find us on all of your podcast platforms, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, you name it. And oh yeah, I was going to I'll post the link to this thing on our show page. The again, the pod track P4. Good little podcaster on the go. You still need a mic, but That's all you need. Apparently,
Yeah.
you don't need to hook it up your computer or anything. Just
It's pretty cool.
podcast on the fly with your phone.
Yeah.
But we'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll have a great guest on. We're looking to book a guest from the author of the How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. What is it, Stein? I can't remember the guy's. It's one of my all-time favorite books, and I can't remember the guy's name.
That's right.
How to Get a Meeting with Anyone should be a good one.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll have.
That's a good skill to know how to have.
No doubt. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the weekend. Sean, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
See ya.
All right.